What is going on, Lancers? Welcome back to the Style of Gaming, and welcome to another edition of our Anthem Masterwork weapon reviews. This time, I'll be talking about the Masterwork Autocannon, The Last Stand. This bubbly pink machine turret of death is one of the coolest weapons I have experienced in all of Anthem. Thank you to everyone who has shown the channel support by liking and sharing this video. If you haven't already, please go ahead and hit that subscribe button, and let's get into this incredible weapon. Visually, this is one of the most notable Masterwork weapons in all of Anthem, and easily visible on the back of any Colossus at the launch bay. One of my favorite features of games like this is walking around social hubs and being like, yeah, I do have that. While it doesn't have the same feel with pure RNG like this game, I still definitely really like it. This gigantic, hot pink autocannon is a fine red herring in the world of Anthem. Its solid color body, adorned with geometric and retro heart symbols on the bottom grip, make this weapon look like a fun plastic toy meant to distract you, lure you into the idea that The Last Stand does not handle business on an expedition, and it truly doesn't.
It devastates.
The Last Stand is an awesome and really fun Masterwork weapon in the hard difficulty, but requires a very specific autocannon focused build to really bring it to life in higher level of play. Since the Colossus can't use the machine or heavy pistol, the autocannon is the Colossus' unique weapon, and many of the epic variants do pack a serious punch. One of my biggest complaints about autocannons as a whole, though, is the wind-up or time to fire mechanic as the barrel of the armed Gatling spins and then subsequently fires. Luckily, and beautifully, The Last Stand does not suffer from this ailment. This weapon starts firing immediately upon pulling that trigger for maximum death. This automatically sets the stage for a dynamic combat scheme, as you don't have to tactically prepare yourself for a build-up animation or time before just going in and assaulting the enemies. The base damage of The Last Stand isn't bad, even on Grandmaster. Basic elite enemies with no armor or shields get shredded, shields fall rather rapidly, but armor seems to hold up fairly well against kinetic or standard damage in general, including this Masterwork weapon. The autocannons feel the most sturdy and responsive, like a real firing mechanism, so needless to say, they feel amazing. The pull of the weapon isn't out of control when steadily firing, as you might expect, but it definitely feels like you're firing a high-powered mounted gun, so you'll need to consistently aim and refocus fire as the recoil of the weapon pulls up. But The Last Stand has surprisingly good range and reasonable accuracy from the hip and while aiming down the sights. Like most autocannons, the reload times can leave you out of a fight because of how long they take, so it's important to plan when you are going to unload the massive magazine into some scrubs critical points. That is taking into consideration The Last Stand with all the rest of the autocannon archetypes. The Last Stand's Masterwork ability, Gambler's Wrath, is interesting and unfortunately probably one of the biggest drawbacks of the weapon. The Gambler's Wrath perk states, when the Colossus health declines, it increases all weapon damage by 75% for 10 seconds. That's fantastic. I love this. This is great on paper, because in practice, at least against serious opponents on the Grandmaster difficulty, this perk had me going down more times than I have in all of Anthem in a single mission. When they say critical damage, they mean like 1/8 of your health bar intact, which to me isn't really viable at all. When you get blasted that low, you're either disabled because you're in the face of some melee enemy or at the whim of some elemental status effect, or just any loss of health after that point, you'll go down, and it basically makes dropping the Colossus shield a non-option. So maybe I'm just not nuanced with The Last Stand, but I wasn't able to actually really harness the power and the Masterwork ability of Last Stand because bottom level elite scars were just smacking me down anytime I dropped my shield, let alone something like a luminary that has one-shot potential, a brute, or any high-powered legendary armored or shielded enemy. The other major drawback of this perk is you cannot have another weapon equipped and then switch to The Last Stand and have the perk activate. Maybe I'm just wrongfully complaining, but that just seems problematic to me. So this means if you are critical, you have to risk taking damage, even in that critical state, for the Gambler's Fairy to proc after switching, which seems to honestly defeat the purpose of this weapon. I haven't quite figured out a prominent build with this weapon, but I do really enjoy playing with it. It's weighted, responsive, has good stopping power at an average 500 to 800 damage per shot with a healthy magazine north of 100 rounds. I say I don't want to put a official number on it just because as you change builds, all of things like magazine, ammo size, it's going to change. I would love to see some augments and components come to Anthem that make the Colossus gain health based upon shots land, or kills in a single magazine buff damage, or something to really persuade Colossus players who are on the fence to use the autocannon weapon archetype. It would really put some weight into the last stand, the idea of the name of the weapon, as you could kind of just Rambo enemies. Considering there is a heavy pistol that regens 75% shields upon successful kill while floating, I think this is something we might see in the near future tune for the Colossus, like I said, in terms of damage or damage taken, damage output, etc. I've said before that the defined roles of Anthem are pretty fluid, but ultimately, the Colossus is the tank character, and I'd love to see more facets to make and variate our micro roles inside of our favorite javelins. But all in all, The Last Stand is valuable to any autocannon player and a must-have for primary Colossus who prefer heavy ordnance. Thank you so much for watching, Lancers. Please subscribe, and I'll see you in the world of Anthem and in another Anthem Masterwork weapon review.